True crime case resolution brings you a chilling and unnerving story that shocked a small town in upstate New York, leaving a community in disbelief and a family shattered beyond repair. A twisted tale of betrayal, obsession, and unimaginable violence. It was a warm afternoon on July 23, 2018. The town of Brookhaven, New York, was in the midst of a typically quiet summer. The kind of town where neighbors knew each other and everyone felt secure in their tight-knit community. But that sense of safety was shattered when emergency services received a frantic call around 3:15 p.m. The 911 operator could barely make out the words being screamed on the other end of the line. "Blood! There's so much blood! Help! Please help!" The caller was in complete hysteria, and the situation sounded dire. Police and paramedics rushed to the scene, unaware that they were about to uncover one of the most disturbing love triangles imaginable, one that ended in death. Upon arrival at the modest suburban home, first responders were met with a scene straight out of a nightmare. Inside, the kitchen was smeared with crimson handprints, trails of blood leading from the kitchen to the living room. There, they found 25-year-old Kevin Blackwood, a local mechanic and beloved member of the community, lying motionless on the floor. His once vibrant body now lifeless, soaked in blood, multiple stab wounds marring his chest and abdomen. Standing nearby, dazed and in shock, was 22-year-old Amber Miller, his fiancé, and the person who had made the panicked 911 call. But she wasn't alone. Cowering in the corner, equally shaken but eerily quiet, was Amber's mother, 45-year-old Lisa Miller. The small town had no idea what had happened behind those closed doors, but soon, secrets would emerge, secrets so dark that they would leave the nation reeling. Months before the murder, things seemed picture-perfect for Amber and Kevin. They had met 3 years earlier while Amber was working part-time at a local cafe, and Kevin was a frequent customer. Their connection was instant, and soon enough, they were inseparable. To outsiders, they seemed like the ideal couple, young, in love, and excited about their future. Kevin had proposed to Amber in front of their family during Thanksgiving in 2017, and plans for their wedding were already in full swing. They were scheduled to marry in the fall of 2018. Everything seemed perfect. But behind that facade of bliss, a forbidden and dangerous affair was brewing, one that would end in murder. Lisa Miller, Amber's mother, had always been close to her daughter, some would say too close. Having Amber when she was just 23 herself, Lisa had sacrificed much of her youth to raise her daughter after Amber's father abandoned the family. Lisa often joked that they grew up together, but beneath the playful comments, there was a darker side to their relationship. As Amber grew older, their dynamic shifted, and Lisa's jealousy and possessiveness became more apparent. She was no longer just a mother to Amber, but also a rival, especially when it came to men. In the months leading up to Kevin's death, Amber began to notice odd behavior between Kevin and her mother. Subtle touches, lingering glances, and awkward silences when Amber entered the room became commonplace. At first, she dismissed it. Why would her fiancé, someone who had shown her nothing but love, be interested in her mother? But the seed of doubt had been planted, and soon it would grow into a twisted reality, far worse than Amber could have ever imagined. It was in early May of 2018 when Amber's suspicions reached their peak. She had come home early from work one evening, exhausted from a long shift. As she stepped inside, she heard voices, Kevin's and her mother's, coming from the bedroom. Confused and a little unnerved, she quietly approached the door. What she saw when she peeked through the crack of the slightly ajar door would haunt her for the rest of her life. Kevin and Lisa were locked in a passionate embrace, their lips locked as if they had no care in the world. Amber's heart raced. Her mind struggled to process what she was witnessing. The man she loved and her mother tangled in betrayal. She didn't confront them immediately. Instead, she silently left, her heart breaking into a million pieces. Over the next few weeks, Amber spiraled into a deep depression. She avoided Kevin and Lisa as much as possible, feeling trapped in her own home, unable to confront the horrifying reality. She kept up appearances, trying to salvage what little hope she had left for her future with Kevin. But the truth gnawed at her from the inside. When Kevin tried to reach out, Concerned about her emotional distance, Amber's responses grew cold. She couldn't bring herself to reveal that she knew everything. Not yet. Then, on the night of July 22nd, everything came to a boiling point. Amber had been drinking alone in her room, her mind swirling with anger and heartache. The images of Kevin and Lisa together played over and over in her head like a never-ending nightmare. Fueled by alcohol and a need for answers, she stormed into the living room where Kevin and Lisa were sitting, laughing as if nothing was wrong. Amber exploded. She confronted them, demanding to know the truth. At first, they denied everything. Kevin, wide-eyed with panic, tried to calm her down, but Amber wasn't having it. She screamed at them, tears streaming down her face as she recounted the moment she had caught them in the act. The room grew tense, and the air became thick with the weight of their shared guilt. Finally, Kevin broke down. He admitted to the affair, claiming it had been a mistake, a moment of weakness. Lisa, however, remained silent, her face a mask of shame and regret. Amber's world shattered all over again, and she was left standing in the rubble of her once perfect life. The night ended in bitter silence, but the tension between the three of them was far from over. That brings us back to the next day, July 23rd, when Kevin was found dead. Police were left to piece together what had happened in the hours after that fateful confrontation. Had Amber snapped? Was it Lisa, driven by jealousy and guilt? Or was it something even more sinister? A plan concocted by mother and daughter alike? The investigation would soon take a turn that no one saw coming. Hidden motives, secrets long buried, and a bond between mother and daughter that was far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. This was no ordinary crime. What happened that afternoon was the culmination of years of hidden emotions, betrayal, and a twisted love triangle that would leave everyone involved scarred for life. The small town of Brookhaven would never be the same, and as investigators dug deeper, they would uncover a shocking twist that would make this case one of the most chilling true crime stories ever told. When the investigation into Kevin Blackwood's murder began, it seemed like a straightforward case of a crime of passion. With Amber Miller having been the one to find Kevin's body and call 911, she was the immediate person of interest. However, as investigators dug deeper into the tangled web of relationships and betrayal, they discovered that the truth was far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. On the surface, Amber appeared to be a woman scorned, a fiancé devastated by the betrayal of both her partner and her own mother. But the police knew there was more to the story. The question remained, who had delivered the fatal blows? Was Amber's breakdown over the affair enough to push her to murder, or had someone else intervened in that violent moment? Detectives wasted no time in bringing both Amber and Lisa in for questioning. While Amber was inconsolable during her interrogation, repeatedly sobbing and insisting she hadn't meant for any of this to happen, Lisa was composed. Too composed. She denied any involvement in Kevin's death, but her cold demeanor raised red flags for investigators. Her face showed no trace of the sorrow or shock one might expect from a woman whose lover had just been brutally killed in her home. For days, the police worked tirelessly, sifting through forensic evidence from the crime scene. The murder weapon, a large kitchen knife, had been hastily discarded near Kevin's body, and forensic technicians were working to retrieve fingerprints and DNA samples. Meanwhile, detectives turned to phone records, text messages, and witness testimonies to uncover the full extent of the affair between Lisa and Kevin, as well as the tense relationship that had developed between mother and daughter. Amber's text messages revealed something chilling. In the days leading up to the murder, Amber had confided in a close friend about the affair, stating that she didn't know how to handle it. "I want to confront them, but I'm scared," she wrote in one message. "What if something bad happens?" This seemed to indicate that Amber had no intention of harming anyone, but was deeply afraid of the consequences of revealing the truth. The texts painted a picture of a young woman pushed to the brink, yet not someone capable of cold-blooded murder. Lisa, on the other hand, had a different story. When investigators looked into her phone records, they found deleted messages between her and Kevin. The messages, recovered by forensic experts, showed not only the depth of their affair, but also Kevin's increasing unease about the situation. In one message, just days before his death, Kevin wrote, "We need to end this. It's wrong, and Amber is starting to get suspicious. I can't keep lying to her." Lisa's response was equally disturbing. She seemed less concerned about her daughter's feelings and more about losing Kevin. "I won't lose you," she had written. "Not to Amber, not to anyone." These messages led police to suspect that Lisa, not Amber, may have had a stronger motive to kill. Could it be that Lisa, realizing she was about to lose both her lover and her daughter, had snapped in a fit of jealousy and rage? As the investigation continued, the autopsy results came back with crucial details. Kevin had been stabbed multiple times, but the nature of the wounds indicated something even more chilling. 2 different types of force had been used. Some of the stab wounds were deep and precise, while others were more erratic and shallow, suggesting that 2 people may have been involved in the attack. This was the breakthrough investigators needed. The theory that both Amber and Lisa had been present during the murder began to take shape, but the question remained: who delivered the fatal blow, and what exactly had happened in the moments leading up to Kevin's death? As pressure mounted, Amber finally broke down under interrogation. Through tears, she recounted the events of that fateful afternoon. According to Amber, the morning after their explosive confrontation, she had woken up determined to leave Kevin and cut ties with her mother. She couldn't bear the weight of their betrayal any longer, but before she had the chance to leave, her mother confronted her. Lisa, desperate to salvage the situation, pleaded with Amber not to tell anyone about the affair. She begged Amber to keep quiet, insisting that it had all been a mistake. But Amber, in a fit of rage, refused to listen. They argued, and at that moment, Kevin walked in, overhearing their heated exchange. The argument escalated quickly. Kevin, trying to defuse the situation, attempted to explain himself to Amber, but she wasn't listening. In a moment of pure emotional chaos, Amber grabbed a kitchen knife and brandished it at Kevin, warning him to stay away. But instead of backing down, Kevin moved toward her, trying to calm her down. That's when, according to Amber, Lisa intervened. What happened next would forever remain a source of confusion and guilt for Amber. As she held the knife, Lisa lunged toward Kevin, and in the chaos, the first stab was delivered. Amber claimed it wasn't intentional. She had been overwhelmed by fear and anger. But once the first wound had been inflicted, the situation spiraled out of control. Lisa, seeing the blood, panicked and grabbed the knife from Amber's hands, plunging it into Kevin's body repeatedly. Amber watched in horror, frozen by the violence unfolding before her eyes. In a matter of seconds, Kevin lay bleeding out on the floor. Lisa, her hands stained with blood, turned to Amber and screamed, "We have to make this look like an accident." But there was no way to hide what had happened. Amber, realizing the gravity of the situation, immediately called 911, unable to bear the weight of what had just transpired. With Amber's confession, detectives now had a clearer picture of the events, but Lisa remained uncooperative. She continued to deny any involvement in Kevin's death, insisting that Amber was trying to pin the blame on her. Despite her denials, the forensic evidence told a different story. Lisa's fingerprints were found on the knife, and her blood-stained clothing was a damning piece of evidence. In the end, both mother and daughter were charged with Kevin's murder. The trial that followed was a media spectacle, with the courtroom packed every day as the twisted details of the affair and the murder unfolded. Amber, seen as a victim of both betrayal and her mother's manipulation, received a lesser sentence after agreeing to testify against Lisa. She was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Lisa, however, faced the full brunt of the law. She was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life. Her stoic demeanor throughout the trial did little to win the jury's sympathy, and she was portrayed as a woman consumed by jealousy and obsession. Someone who would rather see her lover dead than lose him to her own daughter. The town of Brookhaven would never forget the tragic events that led to Kevin Blackwood's death. What started as a loving relationship between Amber and Kevin spiraled into a deadly triangle of lust, betrayal, and violence. A cautionary tale of how far people will go when consumed by their darkest desires. True crime case resolution brings you real stories that shock, disturb, and make you question the limits of human nature.